There are moments in life when heaven whispers louder than before, when the still, small voice of God becomes a mighty roar in your spirit. You start to feel movement even before you see it. Doors that once refused to open begin to unlock, and favor starts showing up in places you never expected. This, beloved, is the season of divine acceleration. God isn't asking for your permission to bless you, He's fulfilling His promise. He's taking years of waiting and compressing them into moments of breakthrough. What once felt like delay was divine preparation, and now, every unseen seed you've planted in faith is about to bear fruit faster than logic can explain. Think of Joseph, betrayed, imprisoned, and forgot, until one divine day the same Pharaoh who ignored him for years sent for him urgently. Overnight, Joseph moved from a prison cell to the palace. That's what divine acceleration does. It doesn't just move you forward, it leaps you into destiny. And when God accelerates your life, it's not random, it's precision. You've been groomed in private, tested in silence, and now your time has come to rise in public. Family, if this word is speaking to you right now, type, "I receive divine acceleration" in the comments. Let the heavens see your agreement. You are not behind schedule. You are right on time. Don't measure your progress by human timelines. Measure it by divine alignment. Behind every visible blessing is an invisible force. We call it favor, but heaven calls it divine orchestration. You may think your success depends on who supports you, but the truth is it depends on who sent you. When God's hand rests upon your life, you can't help but rise. Even if people overlook you, grace will locate you. The world may call it coincidence, but those who walk with God know it's divine arrangement. The promotion, the open door, the random encounter, none of it is random. The same God who aligned the stars in the sky is aligning the events in your life for increase. Remember Ruth. She wasn't supposed to be in the field that day, yet divine guidance led her right to Boaz, her destiny connection. That's what happens when you walk in divine flow. You stop chasing and start attracting. The energy of your obedience becomes a magnet for miracles. Every act of faith, even the smallest one, becomes a seed that calls forth multiplication. When you tithe, when you give, when you serve, heaven takes note. And when the time is right, those seeds return not as addition but as multiplication. If you've ever felt unseen, understand this. God has been working behind the curtain the entire time. Your increase is not delayed, it's being perfected. Comment, "Divine increase is my portion," if you believe that. There's a sacred moment when your preparation collides with divine timing, and that collision changes everything. For years, you may have been learning, waiting, sowing, and enduring without seeing the harvest. It felt like silence from heaven, but in truth, heaven was aligning your path. Every disappointment was shaping your discernment. Every delay was training your patience. You thought nothing was happening, but everything was happening beneath the surface. Just as roots grow before fruit appears, your foundation was being strengthened for what's about to rise. When divine timing meets readiness, miracles unfold naturally. Think of David tending sheep in the wilderness, overlooked by his own family. Yet when the moment came, the same hands that played the harp were ready to slay the giant. God never wastes preparation. He uses it as proof of trust. Many want acceleration without preparation, but acceleration without stability can destroy. So God waits until you are anchored in character before He multiplies your influence. Your quiet seasons weren't punishment. They were proof that you were being trained for something greater. Your moment is near, and everything you've learned will soon make sense. Don't rush the process, honor it, because what's coming will demand the strength you gained in silence. Faith is heaven's language, the currency that unlocks divine transactions. You can't buy miracles with money, but you can draw them with faith. When God sees faith, He moves swiftly. When He hears doubt, He waits patiently. Faith doesn't ignore reality, it looks beyond it. It says, "Yes, I see the lack, but I trust the source." You see, money multiplies when faith leads. Without faith, even abundance feels empty. With faith, even small beginnings feel full of promise. Think of the widow in the Book of Kings. She had nothing but a jar of oil, yet her faith transformed scarcity into overflow. The miracle wasn't in the oil, It was in her belief that God could use something small to create something great. That's divine mathematics, heaven adding multiplication where earth only sees subtraction. Faith invites God to participate in your circumstances. It's the declaration that says, I may not see it, but I believe it's already done. And once faith moves, heaven responds like lightning. So guard your faith like treasure. Don't let circumstances bankrupt your belief. Your faith is the seed that will finance your miracle. There's a code woven into creation, a divine principle that everything born of God multiplies. The first words God ever spoke to humanity were be fruitful and multiply. That wasn't just about family, it was a spiritual law. Whatever carries divine DNA carries the capacity to increase. But multiplication begins with surrender. When you place what you have in God's hands, He breathes increase upon it. The little boy who gave 5 loaves and 2 fish didn't lose anything. He witnessed supernatural multiplication because he trusted. Multiplication doesn't require large beginnings, it requires divine alignment. If God can multiply bread, He can multiply your resources, your business, your impact. But the secret lies in your willingness to release. Many hold too tightly to what they have, forgetting that closed fists can't receive new blessings. When you give your time, your talent, your treasure, you activate heaven's response system. God takes what you surrender and returns it pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It's not a transaction, it's transformation. Remember this, when you give it to God, it stops being ordinary. Multiplication is not magic, it's divine partnership. When your spirit aligns with God's rhythm, life begins to flow with supernatural ease. You stop forcing and start flowing. The things you once chased begin to find you. It's not that the challenges disappear, it's that your peace deepens. Divine flow is what happens when you stop fighting against the current of God's plan. Many people are exhausted not because they're weak, but because they're swimming against divine direction. But when you surrender, the same river that once felt wild begins to carry you with grace. Look at how rivers move, they don't rush in straight lines. They bend, turn, and carve their way through stone, yet they always reach the sea. That's divine flow. God's path may curve, but it never breaks. Even detours serve destiny. You might not understand why something had to happen, but when you're in the flow, every twist reveals purpose. You realize delay wasn't denial, it was direction. Divine flow teaches you to trust timing over tension, to follow peace more than pressure. When you move in divine flow, you stop striving and start thriving. Your spirit becomes light, your mind clear, and your hands ready to receive. Limitation is not always physical, often, it's mental and spiritual. The enemy's greatest weapon is not your circumstances, it's your belief that you can't rise above them. Many live trapped inside invisible walls built from fear, doubt, and past pain. But when God declares multiplication over your life, those walls must fall. Every time you think small, heaven grieves because God created you in His image, not in the image of your limitations. Breaking limitation requires a shift in vision. You can't enter a season of divine increase with an old mindset. Think of the Israelites. They left Egypt physically, but Egypt remained in their minds. They were free, yet thought like slaves. Until you change your internal story, your external situation can't transform. God is expanding your capacity to receive, but you must first expand your willingness to believe. The spirit of limitation dies the moment you say, I am more than enough because God is within me. This is your permission to think bigger, dream bolder, and believe deeper. The walls that held you are now cracking under divine pressure. True acceleration doesn't come from striving harder, it comes from surrendering deeper. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's telling God, I trust you enough to let go of control. Many pray for blessings but hold onto the steering wheel of their lives. Yet the moment you release control, miracles begin to happen, because surrender creates space for the supernatural. Think of Abraham standing on the mountain ready to surrender his promise, his son Isaac. That moment of surrender opened the floodgates of divine provision. The ram was already caught in the thicket, waiting for his obedience. That's what surrender does. It activates unseen provision. When you release your plan, God reveals His. When you stop pushing in your own strength, divine momentum begins. Your surrender today is not loss, it's leverage. The moment you let go is the moment God takes over. Sometimes what you call delay is actually divine choreography. God delays not to deny, but to prepare both you and your blessing. If you received what you asked for too soon, it might have overwhelmed you. So He waits until your hands can handle what your heart has been praying for. Every delay carries hidden mercy. While you think heaven is silent, heaven is strategizing. Consider Lazarus. Jesus delayed his arrival on purpose, not because He didn't care, but because He wanted to display greater glory. What people called too late, God called right on time. That's divine delay. Sometimes the waiting room is the most anointed space, because in it you develop trust, depth, and discernment. You learn that His not yet is just as powerful as His yes. Delays are not detours. They're setups for greater demonstrations of grace. Acceleration happens when your heart, habits, and heaven agree. You can't expect divine speed if you're walking out of sync with your purpose. Alignment is not perfection, it's direction. When you align your actions with what God has already declared, things move faster because resistance lessens. It's not that God moves quicker, it's that you stop slowing yourself down. Think of an airplane. It doesn't create the wind, it positions itself to use it. That's what alignment does. When your mindset, words, and spirit align with God's truth, the wind of favor lifts you higher. Doors open not by effort but by ease. You begin to sense momentum, conversations, opportunities, and resources converge without struggle. This is divine synchronization where everything begins to click. When alignment meets divine timing, destiny becomes unstoppable. Your speed increases not by striving, but by agreement with heaven. Gratitude is the language that keeps heaven's windows open. When you live with a thankful heart, you create an atmosphere where miracles feel welcome. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's multiplying. It reminds you that blessings don't need to be big to be sacred. Each sunrise, each breath, each answered prayer, they all carry evidence of God's goodness. Gratitude is not passive appreciation. It's active recognition that says, God, I see your hand even in the small things. When you speak gratitude, heaven responds with multiplication. Remember the story of Jesus feeding the multitude. He didn't complain about how little he had. He gave thanks, and that thanksgiving triggered increase. What was insufficient in human hands became abundant in divine hands. That's the mystery of gratitude. It transforms scarcity into sufficiency. When your heart is thankful, you become a magnet for miracles because gratitude and abundance share the same frequency. Be grateful now, even before the overflow comes, because gratitude today unlocks abundance tomorrow. Not every blessing arrives wrapped in comfort. Sometimes, divine favor disguises itself as a challenge. What you call a problem may actually be the package carrying your promotion. God hides blessings in unlikely places so only the faithful will find them. The storm that scares others may be the wind that carries you forward. Every tear, every closed door, every delay has been holding something sacred, something meant for you. Joseph's pit was the path to his palace. Ruth's loss was the doorway to legacy. Paul's prison became a platform for purpose. The pattern of heaven has never been comfort, it has always been completion. And that completion comes through pressure. The problem isn't proof of God's absence, it's evidence of His intention. When you face resistance, it's not rejection, it's redirection. So don't despise the hidden seasons. They're shaping you for blessings too heavy to carry prematurely. God is not blind to injustice. He may be silent for a time, but His silence is never absence. When He decides to act, He does so swiftly and completely. The same God who allowed the process will also ensure your vindication. Divine justice doesn't just balance the scales, it reverses the damage. There comes a point where heaven says, enough, and everything that was unfair begins to turn in your favor. Think of Esther, an orphan turned queen. She faced corruption, manipulation, and evil schemes, but divine justice elevated her. The same gallows built to destroy her people became the symbol of their victory. That's how God works. He uses what was meant to harm you as the stage for your elevation. Justice may take time, but it will come with interest. Every wrong will be rewritten by divine precision. The tables are turning. What was stolen will be restored. God's timing may not be fast, but when He moves, it's final. Confidence in God is not arrogance, it's awareness. It's knowing that when you step out, you're not stepping alone. Supernatural confidence is born when fear meets faith. It's what allows you to speak life in the face of lack and to keep walking even when the ground beneath you shakes. When you truly understand who walks beside you, intimidation loses its grip. The same spirit that raised Jesus from the dead lives in you. That's not symbolic, it's supernatural reality. David didn't face Goliath with armor, he faced him with assurance. Not in his strength, but in God's. That's why he could run toward the battle instead of away from it. Confidence built on divine identity changes how you carry yourself, how you speak, and how you see obstacles. You no longer beg for victory, you walk in it. Because when heaven backs you, fear becomes irrelevant. When you know who you are and whose you are, even giants start to look small. There comes a moment when the cup doesn't just fill, it overflows. That's where you are heading. The years of sowing, praying, believing, and enduring are converging into a season of divine surplus. Overflow isn't about greed, it's about purpose. God fills you so you can pour into others. He increases your resources so you can increase your reach. When your heart is aligned with His will, He trusts you with more, not to hoard, but to help. Think of Peter after obeying Jesus to cast his net again. The same waters that had failed him all night suddenly produced a harvest so great that the nets began to break. That's overflow when effort meets divine instruction. God doesn't just want to meet your needs, He wants to exceed them. But overflow requires obedience and readiness. The net must be strong, the vessel prepared, the heart humble. Overflow is not random. It's a divine reward for faithful stewardship. There is a sacred rhythm in God's design, a time to plant, a time to water, and a time to harvest. You've planted seeds in tears, prayed in silence, and believed through seasons that tested your endurance. But now the rhythm has shifted. Heaven is declaring, this is your harvest time. What once looked barren will soon bloom with abundance. The soil that resisted growth is now responding to divine rain. Every seed of faith, generosity, and obedience you've sown is returning multiplied. Harvest doesn't arrive when you want it, it arrives when it's ready. A farmer doesn't dig up the soil every morning to check the seed. He trusts the process. Likewise, God has been nurturing your harvest in unseen places. The roots have been growing deeper than you realized, preparing to sustain the weight of what's coming. When the harvest manifests, it will not trickle, it will flood. This is not a time to give up, it's a time to gather. Keep your hands open. The season of divine increase has begun. Our God specializes in turning tables. When the enemy thought it was over, God said, "Now watch me reverse it." Divine reversal is when every negative report, betrayal, and failure flips in your favor. It's not just about restoration, it's about recompense. The same mouths that mocked you will witness your manifestation. God never lets His children end on defeat. He rewrites stories so that His glory shines through your scars. Look at Job. He lost everything, yet God restored double for every loss. That's divine reversal, not a return to where you were, but a promotion to where you're meant to be. It's not the same door reopening. It's a new one appearing, stronger and wider. Every no you heard was a setup for a divine yes. The waiting was not wasted, it was working in the background. Heaven is revering your story. The pain that once defined you is about to refine you. True wealth is not measured by possessions, it's measured by purpose. When God multiplies your resources, He also multiplies your responsibility. Becoming a vessel of wealth means understanding that abundance flows through you, not just to you. You are not meant to be a reservoir, you are meant to be a river. The more freely you let blessings flow, the more freely heaven replenishes them. Look at Solomon. His request for wisdom, not riches, unlocked both. When your motives align with God's mission, wealth chases you down. Divine prosperity isn't about flaunting status, it's about financing purpose. It's about feeding the hungry, healing the hurting, and building what glorifies God. Money, when guided by divine intent, becomes ministry. You're not just blessed to live well, you're blessed to lift others. So prepare your heart and your hands, because when God finds a vessel that won't hoard, He pours without limit. There are moments when God places a mantle upon someone, a supernatural speed that defies natural explanation. You move further in 1 year than most do in 10. You see results that others call impossible. That's not luck, that's mantle. Divine acceleration is when God redeems time, when He makes up for every lost year, every missed chance, every wasted opportunity. What took others decades, grace will deliver to you in a divine moment. Think of Elijah outrunning Ahab's chariot. He wasn't faster by strength, he was faster by spirit. That's the mantle of acceleration. When it rests on you, you don't compete, you complete. Your progress becomes prophetic. Doors open before you knock. Conversations align before you plan. Acceleration doesn't mean chaos, it means clarity that moves swiftly. Heaven equips you for speed because destiny demands it. When this mantle rests on you, even lost time becomes your ally. You were never meant to live an average life. You were chosen to multiply divine impact on earth. When God said, "Be fruitful and multiply," He wasn't speaking to your circumstances. He was speaking to your identity. Multiplication is not something you do, it's something you are. Every step you take, every word you speak, every seed you sow carries the DNA of increase. You are the vessel through which heaven expands its reach. To live as God's chosen multiplier means walking in constant awareness that everything connected to you can grow. Your kindness multiplies healing, your giving multiplies provision, your obedience multiplies glory. You don't chase blessings, you become one. When you live this way, limitation has no language around you. The world begins to see what happens when divine favor meets surrendered faith. You are not waiting for increase, you are walking in it. This is your season, your calling, your confirmation. Multiplication has begun. Family, if these words have stirred something within you, if you feel the confirmation that divine acceleration, increase, and multiplication are already unfolding, then don't keep it to yourself. Share this message with someone who needs to be reminded that God is not done writing their story. Take a moment right now to like this video if your spirit resonates with it. When you do, you're helping this divine message reach others who are waiting for the same breakthrough. Comment below and tell me, what part of this message spoke to your spirit the most? Where do you sense God accelerating your life right now? And if you haven't already, subscribe to Anointed Era, where faith meets divine revelation, and messages like this are released to uplift, empower, and prepare you for what's next. This is your moment of divine acceleration. You've waited long enough. Heaven's clock just struck now. Walk in your blessing, chosen one, and remember, when God multiplies, He does it fast.